All right, welcome back.
Wow, Noah, what sweet tunes were those?
I don't know. I don't know what I'm gonna drop in there.
Oh, okay.
Something new, something from a forthcoming. Maybe we'll go. I don't know. I do have. This is coming out. I guess this will be the second now. I do have a new EP coming out on the 5th on Friday. It's called West Ash. It's just a nice little a little ambient EP to kick off the new year, to ease you into the new year, to help you relax into the new year. So yeah, maybe we'll use some of that. I don't know what track, but yeah, it'll be a little preview, but that'll be available on all the major music services. And again, that's nARK, lowercase n, all caps ARK after that. Yeah, check it out. Drops on Friday. Very excited, very happy with it. Let me know what you think. Uh, yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Uh, but yeah, thanks for the plug, brother. I guess that's what we'll do. And you want to kick off the top five? You want to flip?
Yeah, we can do that.
All right.
My number five was Guy Ritchie's The Covenant. Feel like we talk about him a lot with certain things. Maybe
Oh,
some movies we haven't really delved into as much
well, he makes like
as others.
two, three movies a year now, or at least
Right,
that's what it
yeah.
feels like.
Yeah. He's just there
To
and
the
he's
point
just
where I thought this came out last year. Gonna be honest with you.
oh, okay.
That's how long ago it feels.
Hmm. Yeah.
I didn't
Um,
mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
no, I just I he's one of those guys that like I would not expect this to be his something that he tackles. So when I saw like the, premise, story, subject matter, I was just kind of like, huh, this is the guy who made like, because again, I feel like you get to know a certain director, you get like, you kind of get into vibe with them, then they do something that's a departure, and you're kind of like, what? It's like, uh, did Wes Craven direct Music of the Heart? Like that's his movie, right?
Yeah, that was also a huge passion project for him.
Right.
Yes.
But no, that's what I'm saying. It is a passion project for him. So like I wonder, and I don't know, and I haven't looked it up, what about this story is like so like compelled him to like, I'm gonna do a whole, I'm gonna get Jake Gyllenhaal, I'm gonna do this big thing. And it really the ultimately what his drive really doesn't matter. I don't know. I like the story. I feel like it's one of those things that like we don't talk about. I feel like there's not a big talk about how like we spent so much time in the desert and we're still in the desert, but we just collectively just said, okay, well, we're done.
Yeah,
And we
so
left.
sorry. So you're doing it again.
What's that?
You said like the story's a huge departure for him. Like as a director, you're surprised that he took it on. What is the story of the
Oh, the story.
Covenant
Sorry. Yeah, the story.
for
It's
people
about
who
a
may not be familiar or may have forgotten that it came out this year and maybe don't know who's in it, etc.
okay. So Jake Gyllenhaal plays a uh U.S. serviceman who
This
while
is based on a true story, correct?
based on a true story, while on a raid, his entire team was taken out except him, and the only person that survived with him was his interpreter, and his interpreter basically carried him back through, hundreds of miles of Taliban controlled Afghanistan to, to get him to safety. And then basically when he gets flown out of country, he kind of finds out that like, yeah, we dropped the ball. Like we haven't gotten this guy out. We haven't done anything for him and his family. And I haven't looked into the true story, but in the film, the the interpreter originally worked with the Taliban until his son was killed by the Taliban, and decided that he would just rather spend the rest of his time basically taking it to the Taliban, a la Wrath of Man kind of thing. Maybe that's his new shtick is
Was
like, I'm gonna
this,
find characters that
yeah.
like
What, did
go
this
back
come
and
out
kick ass.
in January?
Probably. It
I
might
just,
have. Let me look and see.
maybe
I have a
that's why
date.
for some reason I could have sworn I thought this was like I thought this was like a holiday release last year, or they snuck it in or something. But I think yeah, I mean, you're 100%
No,
right. It
April
is
April 2021.
April. It feels like forever ago.
Yeah.
Wow. This one
Mhm.
slipped right past me. Still have not seen it. Where can I watch this?
I watched it on Amazon Prime. I
So you did
believe
not
that's
see
where it's
this
at.
one in the theater.
No, I didn't. I didn't. I mean, that's April. What am I doing in April? Um, I guess I'm gearing up for Fast X. I don't know what I'm doing in April, but yeah, no, I wouldn't. I didn't. I did again. You say if you felt like it came out forever ago. Like last year. I had no idea. I kept seeing like the Covenant, but I didn't realize it was a Guy Ritchie movie for the longest
You
time.
thought they were soft rebooting The Covenant. The Covenant.
Right. Exactly.
That's a boy witch movie, right?
Yeah, I thought it was about a bunch of witches, but then I see. I'm
But
like, I'm
they're
seeing the name, but
yeah.
now I see that it's like, oh, Jake Gyllenhaal. Oh, well, which does he play? Aren't these guys are warlocks then, right?
So
You know?
I will get to this one. Um, for the very simple fact that I guess I'm a Gyllenhaal completist. We're gonna be
Mm,
honest.
yeah.
And do you know about his next project, which I believe is straight to streaming? Might be
No
it's
idea.
either
Oh, yeah,
Amazon
yeah. I saw a clip.
or yeah. But you
Yeah,
know that it's
after.
straight to streaming, no
Yeah, I know. I love it.
theatrical.
I know.
I
Yeah.
mean, kind of sucks and they're upset about it, but it is wild. But yeah,
No, because
we'll see
after
how
the
that goes.
last week's Thursday Night Football, there was a little bit like, oh hey, get ready for 2024. And I saw we're getting another season of Outer Range, and them is going to do another season. And then this popped up, and it was a little clip where he was standing outside the bar, and was just like, all right, I just you just boom boom throwing down with people, and I'm like, all right, I'm game,
I
I'm
think
ready
it's
for it,
pretty sure it's Doug Lyman directing it.
of course.
So yeah, we'll keep you posted on that. Maybe we'll do a retro remake special when that one drops.
Oh,
Because
dude, that would
we
be a.
never talked about Roadhouse.
I don't know how we haven't,
I don't
but
think we've
yeah.
done any Swayze on 2x2 ever.
No. You
So
know what, yo, dude, you know what just popped up speaking of that on it was either Paramount, I think it's Paramount Plus or Peacock, I can't remember, but fucking Cutter's Way. And I
oh yeah.
watched the trailer for it. It's like, this is John Cutter. And I'm like, oh God, dude, this trailer is not like
Not
this is
the
one of those
movie at
god awful
all.
like 70s, 80s
Yeah.
trailers. It tells you it's 4 minutes long and it tells you
Oh, I remember.
everything except nothing about the trailer.
Oh, I remember it because I remember dropping it into the episode and being like, we got to cut this down. We got
Yeah.
to cut this down. Okay. So yeah, number five for you, The Covenant by Mr.
Yes.
Guy Ritchie's The Covenant. We have
Covenant.
to be
Right. Yeah.
specific. Okay. And that is available on Amazon Prime. Is that what we settled on?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. My number five might need to go on the table. I'm not sure. Maybe
We'll see.
not. It is a Netflix release from a famous filmmaker whose last name starts with F. Does it need to go on the table?
Well, it
So
looks
the
like
deb,
we're gonna do a little switcheroo because it's my number four.
a switcheroo or synergy?
No, this is
Like,
your number five.
this is my number five. Okay, we're just
It's
gonna
my
talk
number
about it
four.
now, is what
We'll
we're
talk
saying.
about it, then you can give me your number four.
Okay, we can do that.
I guess it's called synergy, but
We can both
we're
talk about it.
switcherooing.
We teased it on our music episode
Yes.
because I had the score for Mr. Trent Reznor and Mr. Atticus Ross. The film in question is David Fincher's The Killer, uh, which was made for Netflix and unceremoniously just kind of thrown up there. And they let people know about it. And I think it had a decent run. But I will never, ever forgive them because they took this brilliant, nihilistic, existentialist, you know, tour de force technical masterwork from one of my favorite filmmakers Uh, they took it, they gave him all the money in the world to make it, and then they only released it in New York and LA for like a week, and it never came here. And somehow you can watch, well, I don't want to say it because maybe it's on your list, but there's another Netflix movie from this year that you can clearly tell, like, oh, well, this one, we're putting our we're putting our money behind this one because this one could get Oscars. So this one gets to go to theaters and gets to stay in them for weeks at a time. But we can't show you the killer. Uh, but yeah, the killer stars Mr. Michael Fassbender. Haven't seen him in a while. Where you been, buddy? Been racing cars. Doesn't care about acting anymore. But, this got him out of bed, apparently. Very loosely adapted from a French comic book of the same name. The killer follows the titular killer. Wait, he never gets a name, right? He's just the killer. Yeah.
Mhm.
Uh, Yeah, it follows him after a misadventure on his latest assassination for hire. When things go awry, he has to go on the run, and then as a result of his fuck up, uh, bad things happen to somebody that he cares about, even though he's a guy who claims to care about literally nothing.
Right.
Uh, and then he proceeds to spend the rest of the movie on a very like this is not what I love about this movie is that it's like it's not this like adrenaline fueled revenge thriller like at all. It's like
Right.
a complete subversion of those types of movies, and it's like it has, yes, the most bare bones of premises, of plots, if you will. The story it's telling about this particular type of mentality, this guy who tries to present to the outside world and tries to basically like lie to himself on a regular basis that he is this like detached above it all sort of dude who like, denies empathy, you know, lives outside of any of the normal bounds of like human emotion, etc. Meanwhile, you're watching him like systematically avenge, the fact that somebody he loves was wronged basically and like the you know not being able to, excuse me, the unreliable narrator of it all.
Oh yeah.
Uh, Again, technical mastery on every level. The sound design, best of the year in my opinion. It's one of those where I'm like, they'll probably completely ignore it at the Oscars, but it's like it should win every sound award. Uh, just incredible. The way it puts you inside his head. Uh, Again, one of the most darkly funny scripts of the year. It's Andrew Kevin Walker, uh, who of course wrote Seven, adapting. I guess this is an element, obviously, of the graphic novel. I've not read any of it, but it just so much of it just feels like Fincher. It's not even like this is my worldview. It's like this is to your point. We before the break we're talking about Leave the World Behind and like kind of knowing your guy, so to speak. But it's like this is what he knows or thinks people think about him,
Hmm.
essentially, suffused into this character. And
Right.
on that level, this is one of the funniest movies of the year. Like I think it's absolutely hysterical. Um, Fassbender's just crushing, dude. Just one of those
Yeah.
things where you're just like so glad to have him back. And it's the again, I feel like it's the type of movie that is never gonna quite like be everybody's cup of tea. So it's never really gonna get the proper recognition. But I'm like, he's on the Arkies list for best actor.
Oh yeah,
He's
definitely.
on the nominees. Um, I think one of my favorite performances of his illustrious career, where I always enjoy him. Uh, yeah, I have totally hogged the mic. Tell me what you like about it.
I mean, I talked about it on the cast. I love the Smiths of it all. It's like a greatest hits, and you're just like, would a nihilist like really? Of course, nihilists listen to the Smiths all the time. It's all about melancholy and nothing matters. you know? And I do, again, I think you hit it on the head with just like, yeah, this is who maybe most people who think they know David Fincher, like they're like probably watching this being like, oh yeah, well of course you would put that in this and well, this and that. It's like maybe he's actively doing that to you to make you like, understand that he gets it. He gets that you get what he's doing, maybe. I
Yeah.
don't know.
I mean, he's yeah, clearly the dude has a very dark view of humanity. Always has, and is like that has not changed at all. And so it's like it's perfect to put a lot of that ethos essentially into your protagonist. It's hard not to like people are obviously the people who are always concerned with like, oh well, the director is always reflected in their protagonist, to some degree, that want to read into that, you know.
Right.
He's definitely toying with that. And again, with audience expectations, I think somebody pointed out that like the use of the Smiths music, especially like when it's first introduced, I don't know who to credit for this. I'm totally stealing somebody else's thought, but um, that even the way that How Soon Is Now is used in that opening, like the sniper sequence where things go to
Hmm.
shit, uh, that like he you can almost feel him toying with you where it's like he knows that like that's what you think his movies or his sensibility is, which is just like, oh, somebody's gonna get fucking killed. How soon is now? And it's gonna be like the most stylish, sexy, cool thing I've ever seen, blah blah blah, that
Hmm.
like people are gonna be basically getting off on. And he again in the sound design like denies you that and basically like rubs your nose in your expectations because like he cuts out from it being like uh diegetic like in the ear of
Hmm.
the killer versus like, well, now it's drowned out because we're not focused on that, he's play and he cuts out at like all the kind of crescendo points that you would expect, and then like, just so many just it's the venture of it all. Just the tiny little details. It's the I'm gonna do 45 takes because I'm looking for like this, you know, tiny little magical thing that you just, you know,
You might not get if you only do three
you
and
might
you
not
think you
get.
got it.
Even as
Yeah.
controlled as so much of that is, that was what like blew my mind is you look at like some of the behind the scenes that are uh available, I guess mostly on YouTube because there's no like real functionality for it on Netflix, but there's been all these great making of docs, and I was like the whole scooter sequence,
Hmm.
it's all rear projection. Like
Hmm.
that scooter was like never on a street, I don't think, for like any part of that sequence. Yet you
Right.
watch it and you're just like, how the hell did they shoot this? You know what I mean? You're just like, but I mean, it is the highest level of like what should just showing what you can do with digital filmmaking where it doesn't always have to be purple goo and blue shit in the sky. It doesn't always have
Right.
to be in the service of a comic book movie. You can use it to stitch together and literally make like a new kind of movie magic where it's like you don't question for a second that Michael Fassbender is on that scooter like racing through the streets of Paris. And yet,
Right.
you know, you watch the behind the scenes and you're like, oh, they're in a fucking warehouse with like a couple screens around him. Like that's
Yeah.
it. It's just so well composited because he's got the best dudes doing it. Um, just an absolute blast for my money. Again, one that I knew immediately when I was watching it was like this, the way it ends, the overall tone of it. There's a certain amount of people who are going to go into this expecting one thing, maybe not get what they were, what they thought they bargained for.
Right.
Um, I knew inevitably there were going to be those kind of reactions. I also knew simultaneously this was one of those that was like, it's gonna be hard for me to be objective about this, but like, uh, it's my favorite movie of his since Zodiac, and I love all of his movies. And Zodiac's like a stone cold masterpiece for me.
Hmm.
I think this is a stone cold masterpiece. I think it's uh, eminently rewatchable. Uh, it's just it's one of those movies I've seen it twice already, and it's one of those where it's like, oh, this sequence is coming up, and the structure of it too, where you know you've literally got the different sequences like demarcated by like chapters. It's just it's almost tailor made for the rewatch on Netflix for like, oh, I'm just gonna dip in, check out this little section, you know, come
And
back
then
to it a
dip right
little
back out.
later.
Yeah.
And again, all of them have amazing aspects that I love about it. I mean, we could go into all of the supporting performances. We don't have to do that here, but if we were gonna throw anybody in, uh,
Mm,
personally, I gotta throw Tilda on my supporting.
yeah.
She kills it in those like 10 minutes. Um, Also, I mean, Charles Parnell. Oh my gosh, his assistant. She would definitely.
Oh yeah.
She might need a nomination actually. Maybe above Tilda. Maybe along with her. I don't know. But the killer. One of my. I gotta say, I feel incredibly strong about my entire top five, which is part of why I feel like this is such an incredible year for movies. In my book, I got five stone cold classics, new classics, masterpieces for me personally, and we're talking about all of them going forward. So, uh, this is my number four.
Hmm.
Uh,
I thought that
it's
would be going to your number four.
going to my number four now.
Right.
Yes, because to be clear, The Killer was your number four.
Right. It was your
Okay,
number five, my number four.
that's correct.
Right.
Now, I am pretty well convinced that my next one is going to have to go on the table. So, I mean, do you want me to say it?
I mean, yeah, because I
We
don't.
are very close to the top.
Yeah, but
We
I mean,
can
you're gonna have to
maybe
talk
we
about
can, but I don't want to stomp on it if it's your number one.
it. Well, I mean, if it is, we'll table it.
Okay,
Okay.
my number four favorite film, 2023, is Martin Scorsese's Killers of the Flower Moon.
Table it.
Okay,
Okay. So now we're
your
back. Look
number
back. I'm
three.
back with my number three. My number three, um, again, I don't know what it is, but this just always happens to me. When they're good, they're good. My number three is Transformers: Rise of the Beast, Noah.
Dude, hell yeah. Okay.
I mean,
Or-
listen,
yes, yes.
why wouldn't
No,
it be?
no, I was like, where are the fucking Gavin picks, bro? I was like, I was like, dude, 1001? I was like,
Is he
okay.
is
I
he
was
allowed to
like,
like indie movies now? Is he growing up?
look at this artsy motherfucker sneaking in here at the end of the year. Like, what the? I love it. fully support this choice. I still have not watched it yet. On Paramount Plus, correct?
Yes.
You know what?
Oddly,
I
like
gotta work tomorrow and it is like 1 a.m. So I'm not gonna lie to you and tell you I'm watching it tonight. But I'm gonna fucking watch Rise of the Beast. This is your number three, brother?
yes.
Fuck yes.
Dude,
I
I went and
love
saw it
you
in
so
theaters on the
much.
last run, and like a week later, I get home and it's like, hey, it's available on Paramount Plus, and I was like, well, damn. But I'm so glad I went to
Okay.
see it in theaters
Don't
because, like,
don't get lost in the lore, but explain to people like if they don't give a fuck about Transformers and they're like, you really like why would I come back to this? They're still making these. Like, tell
okay,
people why they should be excited.
okay. So originally, a couple years ago, they decided to take it back to what Spielberg said was the magic of the first movie, which is it's about a boy in his car. Except this time it was about a girl in her car, and it was old girl from
True Grit.
True Grit. Like,
Just rewatched True Grit like two
yeah,
nights ago, by the way.
I think she does music now too. I don't know what.
She does. She's also part of the Marvel Universe.
That's right. She is in Hawkeye. Yeah. Um,
What is that character called?
I have no idea what her character name is. Is it
Is she just Hawkeye now? Hawkeye 2?
Haley?
Haley Seinfeld is the actress.
Yeah, yeah. Um, but they did
Steinfeld. Steinfeld? Seinfeld.
Seinfeld. Yeah,
Steinfeld. Yes.
sure. But they basically they did Bumblebee, and it was like a standalone thing, and it tested so well and did so well box office wise that they said, well, like Bumblebee's going to be like a hard reboot. Like we're done with what Bay did. We're moving along, and so the big thing was like, okay, well now you're gonna get Beast Wars, like like the characters from that, and I I think I've talked about it here. I know I've talked about it with other people, but the Bumblebee movie and this, they just feel so much more like grounded into like what we're doing. I don't feel like the space they occupy with the way they've done the CG, like Michael Bay's thing was like, hey, look what I can do. I got the best like aerial camera crew. I got the best people to tint the stuff afterwards so it looks orange and blue and orange and that. Like, look at this. Look at this mask. Like, I blew this up. I did this. I did that. Look at me. And that's great for him. And I'm glad he did that. And I love
We
those
love
movies.
him for it. Yes.
Exactly. But this is like, hey, you know what? We can do this in a Hollywood basement if we wanted to, and it
Right.
can look just as good. So we don't have to maybe blow all the money on the overhead, and we can stay under the line. So that this thing doesn't make money, it still make money.
Word.
And this technically, if you want to get technical, it is the lowest performing one at 320 some odd $1 million. You know,
But it's probably one of the more profitable, maybe. I don't know.
yeah, but the whole thing is
Relative to
like,
its budget, I'm saying.
yeah. If you're on per capita towards the budget, it's great. But essentially, it's kind of like it is still continuing that story from Bumblebee. Like so, but if you go into it not knowing that, it's not a big deal. Like, you don't have to have seen it. It just makes it better if you have. And so I luckily watched Bumblebee about a week before I went to go see this, so it all made sense. Um, and it's essentially it's kind of rebooting the whole Transformers Come to Earth franchise.
Well, maybe I'll start from scratch and
Dude,
watch both of them actually.
yeah, dude, Bumblebee's like it's like
I heard it was very charming. Heard it
low
was good.
key. It's not like a Paddington 2, but it's up there with like a wow, dude, this little standalone thing from this giant franchise shouldn't be this nice. It's just but it's because it's not into the world stakes. And that's what I love about like I loved about it was like this is just about like her, what's going on with her and her car and John Cena chasing them, and that's it. you know? And then we get to this one, it's like, okay, we've upped the stakes, but it's not like we're not we're not like throwing it all out there with like Megatron and like all this other crazy shit. We're not doing that first. Like, we're still building to like when you get, and that's the thing I think maybe people are realizing now when they're bringing up old IP is that like 10 years ago we were shooting for like, oh, if it's GI Joe, we got to get Cobra in there, bro. Like we got to get Cobra, we got to show him, right? Or if it's Transformers, we got to get Megatron in there. It's like Megatron's great. Megatron's a big bad in Transformers. There's so many other villains in the Transformers that you could go to. So like the fact that you swing for the fences with Megatron in the first one, that's cute. But when you have to keep bringing him back in these other ones, it is diminished returns. As much as we love you, Mike, it's just what it is. But I get it. You're not writing a story. You're just making them. That's fine. But
Yeah.
with this one, there is a lot of like, okay, the people who made this, they love Transformers, and there's
It was
actual
maybe
human.
like finally it
What?
being out of the, I was saying maybe it's finally being out of the hands of one guy the whole time, like just
Right.
letting some fresh voices in there.
hmm
And again, I'm
There's actual
shocked.
human stuff in there that matters.
Yeah, I'm shocked he stuck around for what, five or six of those?
Yeah.
Five?
Yeah.
Six?
One, two, three. Um, Age of Extinction with Marky Mark, and then the last night with Marky Mark. So five, yeah.
Oh man.
Bumblebee is technically the sixth overall. This would
I
be the
would have
seventh
taken
overall
I would have
film.
taken like three more ambulances over some of those movies. I'm just saying.
I still haven't seen the last night. It's the dark horse now. It's
Yeah.
the one Michael Bay I've never seen,
Okay.
you know? And I have
Well,
it. I just haven't cracked it out.
that's encouraging because I don't have like a huge relationship to them beyond like playing with some of yours when we were kids. I don't remember watching the show very much, but it's just like I like friggin' robots, dude.
Yeah.
I like mecha.
Well,
I
and that's another
like
thing. It's
it's
like,
just cool to look at. So,
and I
and I'm
talked
into
about
Beast
it.
Wars. I could
Oh
be
yeah,
into
you
that.
yeah. I remember you had Optimus Primal. But like I talk about it a lot, but like that first Transformers is just it's influential in me in my entire life. I spent um over like just stayed up over 24 hours and I spent all night just went to the movies and I spent the rest of that night with two really good friends. One of them isn't with us anymore, and it's a memory that's etched in my mind because that first one, for all it was worth, like with what Michael Bay did, he got everything right that he needed to because my buddy that was in the military was like, yeah, that is a Black Hawk. Yeah, we do this, we do that. And I'm like,
Yep.
okay, dude, I get it. Like he got it right. And he goes, no, you don't understand. He got it all the way right. Not just like it looks right. That's everything's right about that. So I can never knock Michael Bay for that. Cause like as much as it may be like, I remember Evan Tuig being like, "What'd you think?" It was like, CGI piece of shit, and I was like, "I loved it," and you backed me up, and you're like, "Oh, dude, I liked the first one. It was really good." And I appreciated that at the time when you said that. But going to see this, it totally brought me back to that moment, and it totally got me on the edge of like, I'm watching this fucking popcorn movie. I don't care about how many takes they did it, what green screen, what basement they were in, what studio lot. I'm just having fucking fun at the movies, man. And I looked up, I was like, oh shit, we gotta go. And like with where it left me, I was like, if they told me that it was gonna take 3 more years for me to get this because of this actor strike, in 3 years, I'll be here day one. Just see it because it's just it's just a thing that really brings me joy. It makes me happy. And instead
It's
of
what
having to
it's
go
it's what
back
it's
and
all
throw on,
about,
yeah,
man.
exactly. Instead of having to go throw on something I've seen 1,000 times, I got something fun and new. We still have Peter Cullen doing the voice of everything. You got Pete Davidson does the voice. The girl in it, I think, might have been in Swarm or something
Dominique
else later.
Fishback is in
Yeah,
it,
yeah,
yeah.
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 And the kid the main lead kid, that's the thing. There's a lot of human stuff in this that like it isn't necessarily always about like, oh, we've got to find the all spark and we've got to do that. It's just like, no, man, like these human characters matter more than I think that like, oh,
They
look,
actually have
it's
something to do in the action beyond just
right. They,
being
yeah,
fodder. Right.
exactly.
Okay.
You know,
Well, all right.
yeah.
Transformers Rise of the Beast.
Yes.
Hell yeah. Number three.
Hmm.
All right. My number three is probably the biggest swing of 2023, I would say, in a lot of ways. Uh and I guess it's probably gonna go down as a swing and a miss. It probably was always destined to. It was probably already destined for cult status like the weekend it opened. Uh it's Ari Aster's Beau is Afraid. My
I
number
tried.
three. You tried. You
I,
tried.
I, I put it on as soon as I was available. I tried. I was so fucking sad, dude. I was like, what? I can't watch
How
this.
far'd you get?
Like he tried to go across the street and
Spoilers for Beau is Afraid. Go ahead.
he like was going across the street and like,
Because he needs water for
right.
his medication
Yeah.
because he's very anxious
Yeah.
because excuse me he is a very anxious man who is just simply trying to go visit his mother. Okay,
Right.
that's and his bag is
Who's,
stolen, his keys are missing,
yeah.
and he's anxious about calling her, and he tells her, and it's that moment of like, oh, I don't want to disappoint my mom, but I can tell she's disappointed, and she's like, I'm sure you'll do the right thing. And so
Dude, just,
in a moment of frustration and anxiety and just dread, he's like, I got to take my medication because I'm on a bunch of medications because I see this therapist, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, there's no water. I'm out of water in my house. Oh, faucet. I'll go to the faucet. Oh, the water's out in my building. Oh, ah, oh, I gotta. Okay, shit. I have to take this with water. I gotta go across the street. Oh, would you looky there? Just a giant pallet of gleaming new plastic water bottles being delivered. Meanwhile, sheer fucking chaos
chaos.
outside.
I
Somebody getting
know,
their
dude.
eyes gouged out.
Yes, dude. Like it's so I will finish, but I was just like, what the fuck, man? Like,
That made you sad and you turned it off there?
no. The calling
Okay.
his mom and his mom just like the vocal drop. Whoever the actress is playing his mom, I don't know if you see her, if she's just a voice.
Patty LuPone.
But just like, ah, God, dude, that cut like because then I'm like, I get that it's supposed to be like this guy is scared, he has anxiety, and like maybe all the shit we see isn't real, or maybe it is real. We don't know, but it's real to him, and that's all that matters. So who cares? But like when I see that, and then I like that little bit where like her voice just dropped about him not being on the plane or wherever he had whatever he had to do to get there, I just got immensely sad because I'm like, there, like I know people who like can't get out of bed in the morning, and I want to tell them, okay, and but like I don't need to talk to them like that because I don't know whatever happened to them that made it so hard for them to get out of bed in the morning.
Well,
I
and
feel like,
you also you've just spent the last like 20 minutes with the guy. You saw his night before. You saw
yeah,
how he got no sleep, and
yeah,
you literally were like, he went back to get his floss, and someone or something stole his bags and his keys. Like he's not lying to you, but of course you're sitting there going like, but
the mother's heard this 10 times
it
already.
sounds insane. Of course it sounds like a bullshit excuse. And you're like,
Yeah.
but it's true. But it's fucking true. And
Hmm.
okay, if you couldn't handle that, you're gonna have such a tough time. But please, please finish this movie. It
Oh,
it
I'm
is
going to.
I I've seen it 3 times. It might be my favorite Ari Aster film. I think he does nothing but make just like absolute bangers. Um, some of the biggest laughs. I mean, this is yeah, on my list, this is the funniest movie of the year. But
Well, I'm sure.
but you gotta know how to laugh at it. And I say that while also acknowledging this has some of the most like deeply upsetting and uncomfortable, like cutting to the bone stuff in it too, where I'm just like, this touches taboos and insecurities that I didn't know I had inside my own self
Hmm.
in such deep and profound ways that I I I yeah, I don't know if I should be watching this. I don't feel comfortable engaging with it. And it manages to have you have all of those feelings, or at least have me have all of those feelings, while I'm also like literally dying of laughter, like on a pretty regular basis. It's emotionally devastating in so many different ways. It's a total odyssey, a true odyssey of a movie. A lot of movies like purport to like we're going for a grand epic scale and like, you know, blah blah blah. He actually fucking did it. And the fact, just the simple fact that A24 let him make this where it's like he made good on Hereditary. He managed to make Midsommar a financial success. It's like he's a name guy. He's got the most famous actor in the world, one of them at least, just just off fresh off of a best actor win. Like let let's just let him do it. And knowing from his short film work and seeing what he's done so far in movies, just knowing what he could and would do when the gloves were off, essentially, when, you know, he had the Kate Blanchett with the budget,
Hmm.
he did not disappoint at all. Not one iota. It is 100% him. And I'm so happy that he exists and he makes movies because there's just so few people, like I said, that are what, I mean, I feel like the thing is, right, like we all have these thoughts, even if they're like passing thoughts, some of this shit. It's like, and he's one of the few guys who it's like, I will take the most like upsetting thought that might float through my brain on a given day, and that'll be like the starting point for one of my characters.
Yeah.
And it's just, again, I, anybody who I thought you were going to tell me you were like legitimately like, I can't watch this. I'm turned off by it. I don't like the vibe, whatever. And I would not begrudge you at all. It is 100% one of those movies where I'm like, if somebody if it's not your cup of tea, I'm not gonna sit there and tell you you're wrong for not getting it, or you're dumb for not getting it or liking it. It's just it's not the case. But for me and the guy for me and the kind of shit that I enjoy, um, this was just uh yeah, an
Hmm.
absolute banger. A new favorite, a movie I will be watching over and over again. Beau is Afraid. Total triumph. Joaquin definitely in the best actor Arky's race. And yeah, this movie's never gonna get its due this award season, but it is now available on it's on Prime, is that correct?
I think so, yeah.
Yes. Uh so yeah, if you have not seen it, I could not recommend it more highly. But yes, no going in. It is long and it is an emotional fucking roller coaster.
Hmm.
Please finish it. We can do a
Oh no,
whole
yeah,
other
I will.
episode next
Yeah,
year. I
I
don't give a
will.
shit, even though it came out like not 8 months ago or something. One of my absolute most anticipated this year, and talk about like exceeding all expectations. Yeah. Loved it. Absolutely
Yeah.
loved it. That's my number three. Beau was Afraid.
Okay. And I'll definitely finish it. My number two, I had you table is Killers of the Flower Moon.
Which was my number four.
Yes.
I believe this is the most recent addition to your list,
Literally
possibly.
last night,
Okay.
this morning, and
Well,
last
I'll
night.
let you take the lead on this, by all means.
Um, it you've never seen an episode of Yellowstone, have you? Like never before? I don't think you've ever watched an episode, right?
Uh, no.
Okay, so there's a moment in pretty much every Yellowstone episode where I say out loud, regardless if like anybody's watching it with me, I say, "We get it, Taylor. We fucked over the Indians. I'm sorry." It just like even in every episode, I'm like, "Okay, Taylor, I get it." This movie is 3 hours of that. Like
3 hours and 20
20
minutes, I believe.
20 and a half minutes of that. And it's one of those things that like, and I don't, I, if we're going to go, we can go spoilers or not. I can keep it. I don't care. It's one of those things that like, it's another thing that I came to like knowing more than I feel like the average person. Like I talked about a couple years ago, how I knew I had heard all this stuff about like the Tulsa riots and then or the Tulsa massacre, and then bam, in two different separate medias that very year later on at the end, those are focal points.
Hmm.
The Tulsa massacre is a focal point, and I feel like this was either further removed because like I had heard all this, but the way that it was, I was telling Bex about this, the way that it was told to me through the episode that I listened about this whole thing, it was framed and whoever wrote it as like, oh yeah, all these bad things kept happening to these Indians. And they don't the storyteller didn't necessarily they're like, oh yeah, they had a bunch of oil money. But
Hmm.
they didn't necessarily tell me how much oil money they had. So I'm just listening as like, okay, like I I felt like this was a very isolated thing, right? I
Right.
look at this as like, well, yeah, like it happened to this one girl, and like, yeah, her whole family was like kind of taken out, but like it wasn't an inside job. Like it couldn't have not been. It couldn't have been this like cabal of people that were like conspiring to do this to her family. And now that you're like, well, no, it wasn't a cabal of people conspiring to do it against her family. They were conspiring to do it against everyone they could, you know? And it's like, it's one of these things where like you wonder why this story has not been told. It has been. I'm sure more people know about it than I'm thinking, but I'm having a hard time believing that the general movie going public knew anything about this specific story before they went and saw this movie, if they went and saw this movie. So it essentially is about a period of time post World War One, pre-Depression, where oil is discovered on the Osage Indian Reservation, and the powers that be and all of their great American glory decided that, well, I guess since all these brown Indian people are going to be, the richest people on the planet, in terms of money in the United States, they're going to be the richest people on the planet. we ought to one do everything we can to not give them this money, make
Yes.
it hard as hell for them to get it, and then you know possibly the effects of what that has them getting this money has on them as a people moving forward. To be as vague as possible. Again, if we're gonna go spoilers,
I
I
mean,
can,
again, it's
but
like spoilers for history and spoilers for a very famous novel. But I feel like honestly now, if it just went live on Apple, I feel like now people are just now
no,
getting.
no, it was live a week afterwards. I bought it. I had to buy it. You could buy or rent it. I was like, I'll just buy it. It's not free to watch on Apple.
No, 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 but it was still an extended there like from when it premiered in theaters is what I'm saying.
Well, it wasn't long. I mean,
It was not on Apple for a very long time, longer than the
right.
45-day window. I think it
Like
just
no
recently became available
December
on.
1st, yeah. No, the
Okay.
8th.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did not know it had been up that long. I would have rewatched it again already. I did catch it twice in theaters because
Yeah.
um I read the book prior, David Grann's Killers of the Flower Moon. And so I came in with the definitely on first viewing s- a certain amount of expectations where I was like, okay, well, I have my ideas about like the things I want to see represented or the things I think are like essential here, things I want to see.
Hmm.
And I basically came out pretty knocked out by the movie, but with a few things that I think were like unavoidable where I was just like, well, I did read the book and I did have a little bit of that mentality. And then the more I sat with it, and then also I went back for a second viewing with Mr. Brendan Riley because he hadn't caught it yet. And I really just tried to engage with it as like, okay, you know the story as it was presented in the book. And the story, the scope of what's presented in that book, you could tell several different stories out of. You could also do a giant like mini series approach that tries to cover all aspects of this.
Hmm.
But rewatching it that second time and zeroing in on like this is the story that Scorsese is trying to tell within like this is the themes, the story he's pulling out of this. And basically, in that second viewing, I was like, and it's all there, or at least for me, it was. I was like, all the things that I was like, oh, I don't know if they touched on this enough, or like, was this, was this given enough daylight? Was this too vague? Was this that? Blah, blah, blah. All of that completely went out the window, and I was like, nope, this is like full on new American masterpiece. One of the fact that he keeps like knocking shit like this out at in his 80s is just astounding to me. I saw it twice in theaters, and it's just a I don't know. The words almost like elude me, man. What a tough sit, but
Hmm.
how the movie manages to make that, some of the most upsetting and depressing material you'll ever come across in a true story, uh, and still have you like kind of viscerally compelled and entertained by just the sheer filmmaking of it all. And again, the decision, without spoiling too much, but again, I think in the trailers, you and I talked a little bit about this going in, but they really right up, the final trailer before the movie, I was like, oh, okay, they're really they're giving away a lot. And then to sit down and watch the movie, and I was like, oh, that's the whole approach. That's the whole approach. Just like from the get-go, we know who the bad guys are.
Hmm.
And that almost being like, oh, he pulled all the mystery out of it. That's that's interesting. So why do you do that? That that's oh this is kind of upsetting because now I can't even sit with the ambiguity of like, oh, maybe something's going on here or whatever. It's like I got to confront this way earlier.
Right. So, and that's what I'm saying. Like
And
the story that I was told via like the podcast about it, it plays it like that. We don't know what's going on here. And then it slowly peels back the onion. It's like, well, maybe it was actually her husband the whole time. You know, I don't think there's any, and again, it's been forever since I
The
listened to whatever
way,
show,
yeah,
but they don't go into any more backstory. So, like, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, oh, the Osage murders. And it's like an isolated thing where this woman's family got killed. It is what it is. It's sad. Not knowing the scope of, like, oh no, this is actually a huge thing that no one talks about. Like, I know they still get money today, but I was looking at what like just a headright was in 1921. Do you know what one headright was? Apparently, if you had a own one headright, that what your annual payout was for that, just one,
mm,
fucking 22,000 American dollars
yeah, wow,
over 4 years, over a year, basically. And that's if you just had like one headright.
mm-hmm,
So like if you had like a bunch in one family, that 4,000 a quarter, maybe that's like, I don't know, 100,000 a quarter, depending on how much you owned,
yeah,
where the oil was coming from. And it's just one of these things where it's like, in hindsight, if we're talking about this in 2023, 24, yeah, how did you not expect that that was going to happen?
right.
You give the people that you pushed off, the people that used to be here, that you've pushed off and pushed off and pushed off. The last place you push
Well,
them to, you don't think to check for oil there. They find it there, and all of a sudden you're like, oh shit. How do we get that money back without looking like, quote unquote, this is a terrible joke, an Indian giver? You
mm-hmm,
know? Like, I'm not trying to be funny, but like, how do we do that? Well, we can't really do that because then we're really gonna look like shit. Like, never mind all that other terrible shit we've done. But if we actually tell them, go to this land, get off your own land. Wait, you gotta get off we can't make them
yeah.
get off this land too. That's a bridge too far, guys. What are we gonna do? It's like, okay, but then it's like, this is obviously what's gonna happen. Like, it may be shocking to like think like, oh my God, I can't believe people did this to each other in the 20s and 30s before the Depression. Okay. But it's like, I don't know if it's trying to speak to some innate American or human nature of like, just we'll do this, whatever. We'll as an American, you're just gonna take and do whatever you can until you can
Well,
use up everything around you. I don't know what we're trying to say here.
I think I mean, it's a huge thread through like all of his filmography, but just morality in general and
Hmm.
what people will sacrifice for, you know. So to that point though, whether you know some of the behind the scenes and the like other stuff surrounding the project or not, I think is kind of irrelevant. But I will say to you, originally DiCaprio was going to play Tom White, and the whole structure of this was going to be, founding the FBI comes in, they're trying to figure out this case, uncover this vast conspiracy, you know, comes in, he's the hero, right? And like
Hmm.
Ernest is kind of a footnote, Molly's kind of a footnote. Somewhere in the midst of this, I guess that they kind of credit DiCaprio as the one who speaks up and is kind of like, I feel like we're missing something here. They basically kind of go back to the drawing board and it's like, wait, maybe it's the marriage. Like what if we focus in on this? And then that flip happens. And that I think that like everything is right there in that decision because now you don't have anything to distance yourself. Like if if he comes in as Tom White, like and Jesse Plemons, who does in fact play Tom White, comes in late in the game and is incredible in this movie, but if you're telling it from that character's perspective, it's very easy to be like, "Oh, look at these bad guys over here. I can't believe how terribly they were treating these people or whatever." But making you sit with the idiot, the true, like the complete dumbass, at the center of
Yeah.
it, who's being manipulated into all of this, but like nevertheless is still taking part in it, like making you sit with that person, you can't you can't help but be implicated. You can't help but sit there and be like, why are they doing this? Like, how could they let this happen? Why won't anybody help these people? And you start to eventually get it over the course of 3 hours and 26 minutes. It's like, oh, well, we do this every day. Like we all do. We literally we know that there's like terrible shit happening, whether it be to indigenous people, black people. Like it doesn't matter. Like however you want to extrapolate that out, we we all like see shit happening constantly, and we just kind of just turn a little blind eye to it. And I think you cast like the most famous movie star in the world and you make him play like a fucking rube who's just like, you know, maybe has a good heart, but like doesn't have a soul. Like,
No, not at all.
um, you know, um, and the fact that those things can go, and I know there's a lot of indigenous people who have spoken out and like had a real issue with like the way he approaches this and the fact that you would even make that the protagonist as if that's some sort of an endorsement or it's trying to make you empathize with that person at all. And I think that's such a still to me just such a weird reading. It's not how it came up, but again, I don't begrudge any person their feelings on everything that this movie has to stir up. But I think fundamentally, the movie almost acknowledges that it's like it's not pitched at a native audience. Like indigenous people are well aware of the tragedy of the Osage fucking genocide. Like they're well aware of it.
Hmm.
Um, this is a movie for all the people who don't know about it and have not paid attention to it and need to reckon with, well, why haven't we talked about it? Why is this the type of story that gets buried? And that, without, I will say, this is spoilers to me because, again, it's history, but this is the one thing that kind of like is a choice, if you will, and is definitely like something I wouldn't want spoiled for me. It was truly like in the theater, like a true knocked me on my ass when I kind of sat with it for a minute moment. But the actual ending, I want to ask you how you felt about it. The, you know, we have the courtroom wrap up. We have the moment between the two of them afterwards where she asked him whether he knew about the poison, being very vague here. And then we cut away from that and we get our epilogue, but it's not delivered in your typical, here's your chirons on the screen at the end of the movie. It's presented in a very different way. What did you think about that?
I one, um I think it lends itself overall to like Scorsese's message of you know, I can talk shit about comic book movies because I read real books. I was that nerd kid who had to read real books and not I didn't get to read comic books as a kid, and my parents made me read real books so I could make whatever movies I want to make. Just kidding. No, I think it's a testament to the fact that in 19 those were done like when the trials happened in what was it 23, and then like 30 it was done in 23 and it was done in 35, that like we've told this story on the radio when radio was the only thing that we had to tell this story. We told it here first, you know. And again, it is neat to see like how they actually made all that happen, but it shows, and it's odd, it's this weird thing because like um it's like a weird zeitgeisty thing that like he's kind of hitting on this thing of like, oh, you think, to me with this ending, oh, you think like true crime podcasts are cool? Have you heard true crime radio shows from the 20s and the 30s? They got nothing on these punks with their iPods and their iMacs and everything today. They had to do it all by hand. You know, something fancy sound effect. What? No, somebody had to make that in the studio right there. It's just this weird like flex on people being like, yeah, you know, this fun stuff with the true crime you love now, the story you might have heard before on a podcast. Guess what? They did it on the radio live when it happened, and about 10 years later. And guess what? None of you watching this shit have ever heard of it. None of you have. but I know about it because I read real books when I was a
Oh,
kid. My parents
okay.
made me.
Okay, so that's what you took from the ending.
And I appreciate it being that way. And I appreciate him coming out and telling me to my face that like this is what happened to her. This is what happened to these people. And like no real justice was done because they let him out. And the shittiest thing of all is that that guy did not die until 1986. He made it all the way to 1986. That's the shittiest
I'm
part
not
about the
try
entire story.
I'm not trying to put words in his mouth, and this is again just my take. But I thought what we were meant to take away from that was quite a few things. But A, that's like it's it's an FBI sponsored broadcast,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
which I think is very interesting given that they get it they get into more of this in the book itself, but there's a whole moment where it's kind of like, okay, well they got their guy and we kind of wrap this up, but like, but what about all those others, like all those other murders we heard about? And it's like the FBI like kind of pats themselves on the back as like this great early success and we solved the Osage murders. And it's like, yeah, but there was no follow up on all this other stuff. Like the author David Grant is going back present day now investigating some of these that were like never touched and just like it was like, oh, clearly, yes, this happened to this person too, but we don't know who exactly. And like obviously it was this expanded conspiracy because at the end of the day, the answer was like who was in on it? Literally everybody. Like all of the rich white people in this area, they're all doing it. They're all in
The
that
rich
room.
and the poor white
Like,
people.
yes, exactly. Yes. And the poor whites are doing the bidding of the rich whites, basically.
Right.
So, um, but I thought that was very
Yeah.
purposeful, the whole like FBI show of it all when you sit and think about like, but yeah, this is interesting that and also, we also know that the FBI goes on to do things like, I don't know, like murder Fred Hampton, and you can watch a whole movie about that
COINTELPRO.
too. Like, yeah.
And let's not let's make it clear right here and now. When Plemons shows up, there is no, oh, the federal government's here. You know this, I know this. The federal government came because they offered them $20,000.
Yes, because they
That
went
money,
basically paid them to come there.
yeah, yeah,
Yes.
they went and paid. Hoover didn't want to do this at all.
Yeah.
And he got marred down in it and it basically had to do something. So, of course, the first time they arrest someone, they're like, hey, look, we did a great job. We're out.
But
We're
anyways,
done.
I thought it was very purposeful that like everybody performing in that show, including Jack White, of course,
Yes.
um, are they're all white people, obviously.
Hmm.
The audience is all white,
Yep.
retelling this in this
Indigenous story.
very sanitized version of this indigenous story. And then you literally have Martin Scorsese like come out and basically announce to the crowd without saying it, but it's basically like to me, I took it as an acknowledgement of like many people might have said from the outset, this was not my story to tell, essentially, but I have told it in the only way that I know how. And that's what I've presented to you, essentially, is like, I'm aware that I am an outsider trying to present this history, this culture, these events, these tragic events to you, the audience. And I realize that there's a limit to how much I can, truly live in this experience, quote unquote. But the story I could tell within it was about this marriage and the dynamics of that. And they echo and explore everything about what we want to get into. There's so many sequences and individual things I could talk about in this movie. We could do a whole pod on it. I want to say, like, for me, maybe definitely up there. We're talking like top three DiCaprio performances. I thought such a different mode. Um, really bold choice. Lily Gladstone. Uh, I really hope she takes Best Actress at the Oscars. I thought she
I
was
do.
absolutely incredible. De Niro as menacing as ever. There's so many great little supporting
Well,
people
what's really
speckled
bad
throughout
though?
here.
Like, I feel like in this sometimes when he's yelling at DiCaprio talking to him, he was just like this close from being like fucking what
Cape
Rocky and
Fear.
Bullwinkle.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say Cape Fear. There's a little bit.
They're a
He
little bit,
dips
yeah, a lot of
into a
Cape Fear,
little
yeah.
bit
I
of
could feel, yeah.
especially in the Masonic Lodge sequence. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Or the Freemasons. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man. So again,
It also did that
we've
there
already
there was
gone
like,
long on it, but
dude, there's some every time, this is just me, and just me personally, every time that they're doing something on screen together, I am looking at like, all right, I'm gonna show Marty how good I am. No, no, no. I'm gonna show Marty how good I am in this scene. Cause like there's the scene where they're talking to each other by cars or something, and they're both just like kind of
oh yeah,
getting
it's
like
the
trying to rough up
I
against
need
each
you to
other.
sign over everything to me, and you're like, oh, this is the scene. Like, oh, this is the scene where
No,
you're
no, no,
telling
no.
me. Oh, go ahead.
That
Sorry.
one too, but like there's one where they are like they're in between two cars. It's at night, I feel like, or something where he has to go to him and tell him I need to talk to you, and they're like, he's like trying to like roughly get up in and mess with him a little bit, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
just like, look at both of these dudes trying to be like, look at me, Marty, look who's better in this scene, Marty, huh? Uncle Marty or Bob,
Oh man.
I'm your boy Bob, I'm doing great here, or like, ah, it's me, Leo, I'm here, I'm doing the work, it's you and me. I know he was great with you in your past. Goodfellas is one of my favorite films, but it's you and me, Marty. It's you and me. I just feel I'm looking at that and they're giving amazing performances, but I'm looking at that as like this is like your ex-girlfriend shows up with a new boyfriend and then you all got to do something fun together and you don't know how to act. Like that's what's in my mind with them, right?
Okay.
And I'm watching this knowing that like here's two living fucking legends, you know, and they're giving each other back and forth in these scenes, and it's just like I I can understand where someone may be like, I don't think it's his story to tell. He has this issue, but it's like
No, I'm just saying
it's all like, no, I
that's
could see
something I
that.
think
That's what
he
I'm
was
saying. I agree.
I think
Yeah,
the
yeah,
movie is actively conscious of and is almost drawing your attention to say that like there are many stories that could be told about this. This was my way in. I'm Martin Scorsese. This is like ta the slow motion tragedy about like a flawed masculinity is like I mean it's literally like you know, it's in the majority of things that he has made.
right.
Uh, so I, yeah, just a fucking knockout, dude.
Hmm.
Not a fun watch, but again, the fact that I am still like, I could rewatch this over and over again speaks to the filmmaking. We haven't really called out sequences as we've gone, but I do just want to say the owl, the funeral
Hmm.
for Molly's mother,
Hmm.
um, and the burning of the field for insurance money. Those sequences is that ringing a bell?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know what you're talking about.
You remember when they burn the field and it's intercut with uh DiCaprio trying a little bit of the medicine,
Which I'm assuming was like strict, not strychnine,
whatever.
probably
But
some sort of, yeah.
anyways, that sequence, uh, yeah, those are three like knockouts for the year for me, and especially on a big screen, just incredible shit. Uh, Loved it. Not a fun movie, but an important one. And I think at this point it's like it's that or Oppenheimer for Best Picture is what it seems like.
Yeah, I could see that.
I think that's what's duking it out. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. Uh, my number two.
Yep.
Okay. And it is getting late, so we won't go as long on this one because I don't think
Yeah.
you've watched it yet. Uh, my number two favorite film of 2023 is from a first time filmmaker, and she made a stone cold masterpiece out of the gate. Her name is Celine Song, and the movie is called Past Lives. Nothing, nothing.
No,
I'm getting a big head shake from Gavin.
no.
Past Lives stars Greta Lee. who some people may recognize from Russian Doll, episodes of High Maintenance. She was a voice in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. She's been around for a while. You would recognize her, but it co-stars her and TOU and John Magaro. It is about a two young Korean kids who meet and don't necessarily fall in love, but they have a moment as kids together. They uh they grow up, they have like a burgeoning friendship, and then one moves away to the States and the other
I
one
know what you're
stays in
talking about.
Korea.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
I've
I'm
seen
for
trailers for this.
excuse me, for our listeners, they basically reconnect over a period of decades essentially. Uh Initially over Zoom, while they're each in college, and then a little bit further down the road. And uh, the trailer gives all of this away, but it kind of builds to uh, him uh, visiting for the first time, and she is in a relationship with John McGarrow, the aforementioned John McGarrow, one of my favorite working actors. And it is just the most exquisite, like romantic uh, drama I've seen in a long time. Absolutely incredible performances, and the thing that puts it over the top is the filmmaking, the way the form and content just like perfectly mesh together. It's a movie about, you know, time, about missed opportunities, different paths you could have taken, all that sort of stuff. And the way that is reflected in the filmmaking is just like note perfect. It's the kind of stuff that like you could teach in a film class, and like some people, you know, a shitty person would be like, this is pretentious, and another person would be like, no, this is like the ideal of what you should be striving for, where it's just like every single shot in my movie, every scene is working towards the same thing that I'm trying to get at. And it's just kind of just a quietly moving drama that builds to what I think is pound for pound the best ending I've seen in a very, very long time. It is not only a masterful technical achievement in terms of the actual like shot composition and just how they actually filmed it. It's kind of breathtaking, but what is contained within that final shot, that final moment, uh, just absolutely, ugh, one of those where it's just like I felt it in my soul. Um, and the only other movie I felt like that about is the one that's in my number one slot. So I'm gonna let you talk about your number two so that
Oh, that was my number two.
excuse me. Flower Moon was your number two. So that was
This
my
might gonna be my number
we
one.
flip flop.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. I'm so curious. I don't
My number one.
I
You want to know
I
it?
of course I do.
It's Mutant Mayhem. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem.
I would make more noise, but it's like 2 o'clock in the morning. But like,
Yeah.
hell yeah.
Yeah.
Get up.
Mm. Six
I'm
in the
I'm
morning, police at my door.
I'm
Like,
freaking out over here.
dude, I've seen it like four times. I've just, it's since it's become available streaming, I've just watched it. It's just so fucking good. I don't, it's like, I'll go catch Across the Spider-Verse, but like, if there's one thing I love more than Transformers, it's Ninja Turtles. You know, it's like, you're going to give me that, and I might get a TV series of that soon, like in that animation style. You're kidding me. I mean, we talked about it when it came out, the decision to have, kids be like the turtles, the adults who are doing the voices and like the old actors who are doing it, they know what they're doing. They came to play. It's not anything crazy. Jackie Chan is as Splinter. It's a no-brainer. I mean, no offense to Tony Shalhoub from the like 10 years ago, but like, yeah, it's Jackie Chan, obviously. Um, I love that they don't. What we talked about, they give you a ton and they don't give you anything at all. You still got Krang, you still got the Technodrome, you
Oh,
still
we
got the
have
Shredder,
so
all
so
that,
much
dude.
stuff to
Fucking
pull
Casey
from.
Jones, dude. You still have Casey
I'm
Jones.
so curious who they're gonna get to voice Casey Jones. I'm
Ah,
so
dude, I would.
curious.
It doesn't matter who it is. I don't care. The voice cameos for like Brave Belay, and then just Bebop and Rocksteady. The idea that Bebop and Rocksteady were already mutants, even though like we know they weren't. They were turned into mutants by the Shredder in the TV show,
Yeah.
but it doesn't matter. Like it's a fucking good time, dude. Like
An
it.
absolute blast.
We are
Yeah.
living in a time where guys like there are guys like us who grew up loving the same shit that we did, and they are in the positions to make these things the way that we would want them made. And it's happened more and more in the past 5 or 6 years, which just means to tell me that either it keep your head down and keep working hard, you'll get wherever you want to go, and then eventually you can do the little thing you want to do. You can move to Hollywood wanting to direct movies, but you wind up on SNL and then you make Barry.
And
You
here's
can you could do anything, and like I just this one overall, it's different because it's like I'm always going to want another live action, put him in the Jim Henson workshop suits and get it. I'm never going to have that again. I understand that. There's a soft spot and I always want one of those. But if the thing I can get is this, that's the next best thing I can get, I'll take that for the rest of my life, dude.
and
Like,
and
doesn't matter.
let's be real, dude. It it for me personally took the turtles to a place that it's never quite gotten to because the heart, dude, they
Yes.
managed to deliver multiple times in this movie, like
Yes.
genuinely like what I felt were like deeply felt scenes. And I was just like, and they're not cynical and they don't feel like they're saccharine at all. They don't feel like there's some like, you know, nostalgia poke that's just like, oh, see, I got you there. It's just on its own terms. It made me care about these new versions of these characters. It made me want to see them succeed. It made me understand their whole struggle. And it honestly, it deepened where I was like, I don't like, I don't even know that like any of the other prior
No.
incarnations have ever gotten to this level of depth of like, I really give a shit about these fucking little teenage mutant ninja turtles, dude. Like, holy shit.
Dude, you got
And
to like there's a
again,
point in
some of the
this
best
movie.
voice performances of the year.
The
So good.
the spoiler, I don't care if anybody hadn't seen it. There's a point in this movie where uh uh God, what is his name? What is Ice Cube's character's name? Uh
Superfly,
Superfly. I don't know why I'm saying fly lounge fly. I don't know or lounge anyway,
Barfly.
barfly, yeah. So
I don't know. But it's
there's a point where they're
Superfly to be
fighting
clear.
him and he's like, "Hey, come on, Rat Man. You know I'm right. You don't like the humans either." I'm like, "Bro, Splinter could have been just the same as him. Like you have your villain that you want to stop, and it's like, yo, your dad
Well, the thing,
shares that mentality, but
absolutely,
he's
the thing
but
that's
he's
what snaps him out of it is so
yeah,
great.
it's beautiful, dude. Like you would never do that. Like 20 years ago, that's not even on anybody's mind, right? But to have that complexity and to put like heart and soul in it, because like this is the same rat that you're like, you see all that and you're like, oh my God, emotional point. But then there's like that whatever that crazy bug cockroach thing is that he's like, oh, I speak her language. He's so happy about like and then the payoff of the milk machine, dude. Like, what
Oh,
is that?
dude.
Another like they're gonna milk you. Like the humans they want to milk you. It's like, dude, like it just hits on every level because you could totally be like, yeah, I told you all that about the humans, but I didn't necessarily tell you how I got there. You see, I used to be a
Yes,
pet to this dude.
I'm
It's
very
so good,
curious to
dude.
see how they bend the line. I did see, of course, you're always gonna have some idiots online who are just like, it's not like the regular turtles. I'm like, they have like changed it up pretty much every time they do new turtles. They fuck
Hmm.
with it a little bit, and I'm like, let it be new and let it be great because it is. Like, it's so awesome. I can't wait to see the sequel. I cannot wait to see the TV series. I'm fully on board with what they're doing with it because they're doing it right. They made me care about these characters again, and I could not have been more delighted. It's my number 13. It's up there. But I do have to now tell you about what I personally believe to be the best animated film of the year.
It's that new one, isn't it? It's the one everybody's been talking about.
It's the latest,
Mm-hmm.
possibly final,
Yeah,
hopefully
no,
not last
I don't think so.
film from the master, the one, the only Hayao Miyazaki. The film is called How Do You Live? And over here they call it The Boy and the Heron. Uh, I don't know what you say about something that you've anticipated for, I guess, like, I guess proper maybe around like 6, 7 years. This is not quite a Tar scenario where I waited, 16 years or something for it, but um, I was, I had so much curiosity about what this film would even be. I think I may have touched on one of our prior pods, but when it was released in Japan, there was uh, no trailer. There was only a single poster, but they didn't announce who the voice cast was going to be. Pretty much nothing except for a handful of still images, and it was just like he's the most famous director in the history of Japan, arguably at this point, the most financially successful for sure. It probably goes like Kurosawa, Miyazaki, like in that order. And so they were just like, well, what's the point? We're just going to release it. And of course, it was a massive hit over there, but even after that, still didn't know much about it. The Boy and the Heron, like a lot of Miyazaki movies, is about a young protagonist uh, dealing with, coming of age. In this particular case, the protagonist is a little boy named Mahito, and his mother has been tragically killed in a firebombing of her hospital. This is during World War II. And so subsequently, he and his father move out of Tokyo to a more rural area of Japan, and uh, the or his father rather decides to remarry his aunt, his dead mother's sister. So moves into a new place, new mom essentially, who's his aunt, who he's never really met, and he's dealing with that. Finds out he has a new baby brother or sister on the way. So it's also just a lot of changes, a lot of stuff going on. And around this same time, he starts seeing a blue heron flying around the property. Uh, Shortly thereafter, this heron starts to tempt him and says basically, like, I know where your mother is. I can take you to your mother. And boy's pretty smart. He's like, I think you're kind of bullshit, but like, I do kind of want to see what's going on here. So, inevitably, he is led into a fantasy world, if you will, a parallel world where he goes on an adventure to see if he can, in fact, find his mother and whether he can trust this new friend, the heron. And I I can't even begin to spoil where the movie goes, what happens in it. It would serve no purpose to, because like a lot of Miyazaki movies, it's not about the plot, it's about the story, it's about the feeling, it's about the emotions. And so much of what I love about this movie, uh, they are the kind of things that I would struggle to find words for. Sometimes something just hits you and you can't even quite articulate what it means to you. This is one of those movies. There is a famous critic, and his name escapes me at the moment, but he has described Miyazaki's movies as encounters with the sublime. So sometimes it's hard to talk about them because that's literally what they are. They're a universe unto themselves. They're movies unlike anybody else's. This, if it is in fact the final statement, is for me a banger to go out on. It is so much a summation of, it seems to have elements of all of his prior filmography kind of rolled into one. At the same time, it doesn't feel like a greatest hits album. It doesn't feel like, oh, this is just a bunch of kind of recycled elements that you've seen me hit on, and like, I'm playing the hits and like you're gonna like it. It's gonna be satisfying on that level. Um, It's not that at all. It's a complete new, wonderful world to explore. Tons of amazing characters. I've seen it twice. Saw it in theaters both times. I did subtitles first time, which was absolutely incredible and my preferred way overall to watch it. I did dub the second time specifically because the Heron, which is a truly unhinged performance in either language, I knew was going to be portrayed by none other than Mr. Robert Pattinson, and he did not disappoint. You also got Dan Stevens, Dave Bautista, Willem Dafoe, Christian Bale, lots of other people floating around in the American dub, if that's your sort of thing. It's still playing in theaters. It's doing quite well at the American box office. Huge success overall. It's definitely going to be up for animation, and it really seems like a showdown this year between this and Across the Spider-Verse. And obviously, based on its placement, you can tell where my loyalties lie. I think this is a breathtaking movie on every level. The the opening moments alone, some of the most arresting visuals I saw in a theater all year, uh, hit me in all the feels in ways I didn't even expect it to. Uh, it's beautiful, it's gorgeous, it's inventive, it's unique. You've never seen anything like it. It's transfixing, bewildering, immaculate. Every adjective you want to throw at it, it's ready to take them because it's as good as movies get in my book. The Boy and the Heron, as it's known in the States. But again, the movie's called How Do You Live? And it's, in my opinion, not only my favorite movie of 2023, I think it's the best movie of 2023, personally speaking.
And this is all because his son just doesn't have the knack, right?
Uh, I mean, yeah,
Right.
if we
I
want to
mean, you
throw
just said all
shade,
those no, you just said all those beautiful things about this movie, and I just want to make it clear. He handed the keys to his son and basically was like, "Nah, never, you can't do it. Get out of here. Go
I
build
mean,
houses or something." Right? Like that's what I heard.
yeah, Goro, uh, he just, I mean,
God bless him,
he's
but
tried, dude, but he doesn't have the goods. I
you
mean,
know, we listen.
here's my thing is like I
We can't all
cannot.
follow in our dad's footsteps, man.
Well, yeah, it's also hard when your dad is like a genius who is one of the most revered artists of
Right.
like
I mean, hey, look, at
our
least you think
lifetime.
you thought you had it. You thought you hey, give it a try, bro. You know?
It's just I can't imagine
We
being
can't all
his
be Ed
son.
Begley Jr., you know?
And so much of this movie is also about legacy, and it's very
Right. Yeah.
interestingly like he's trying to leave something to the next generation, but not, it's very clearly like this is for my grandkids. Like maybe my grandkids will do it.
If I ever
Um,
get them, because this country and this society we live in, all these kids want to stay at home on their computers, don't want to get out to nature and meet another child, maybe have some babies. Yes, Japan, I'm
he's
talking
got
to
plenty.
you. We have a human crisis
Any,
on our hands with
anyways,
population. Sorry.
he's retired multiple times, and even after this, there's now talk of him making a sequel to Nausicaa. His first kind of like one of his first big feature length movies, an adaptation of his own manga, uh, which would be incredible to go back to fucking like 40 years later. I believe that movie came out in 1984. Yeah, or I could be mistaken on that. Uh, just yeah, this was the tippy top of the directors I love making a project this year, and I could not have gone in with higher I mean, my only expectations were that it would be one of the most profound, moving, ecstatic theater going experiences of my life. That's all it had to live up to, and it fucking
Listen,
did, dude.
dude,
It
this is what
so did.
you
What
can
an incredible movie.
edit this out later, but what I want you to do is I want you to ramble like you've been doing about how great it is. But the last thing that anybody needs to hear is they need to hear Ryan Gosling yelling out "Sublime" from Barbie as we end this episode. Just do whatever you got to do to make it happen. But I think that would sum it up all.
What if that's the one drop that gets this flagged on
Yeah,
Spotify?
exactly. Yeah, that probably would be what
You
happens.
can just do it. That's fine.
I mean,
Um,
I can't do it any justice. Have you seen the bit where he's going on and on about all this stuff? And it's like that didn't make the cut because everybody was laughing. So that's all he could do is just go around the
yes,
corner and
yes,
yell.
I sent it
You
to you.
did send that to me.
Yes, I did.
I just want to apologize in front of everybody too for the whole Rick Moranis as a Michael McDonald thing. That was the first reel I saw when I pulled up Instagram. I thought you would enjoy it. I thought mom would enjoy it, but she'd never check her Instagram, so that's where I send everything that I want to save. And dad has yet to
Meanwhile,
send
it
me
was the
anything back
last
about it.
thing I
It was the
sent you.
last thing you sent me, so I will check my reels,
Okay.
new reels from you first
Gotta
before
check those
sending you
reels.
reels.
Gotta
Yeah.
check them. This
Um,
has been a nice, big, long discussion. Normally, in years past, we've done honorable mentions, etc. But I feel like, I mean, I feel pretty great about going out on the note we did.
yeah.
The 1-2 punch of the two best animated movies of the year.
I think it's the first time I picked an
Topping
animated
our,
movie.
well, yeah,
Yeah,
and
it
topping
is.
our list. I mean,
Hmm.
great year for animation. Great year for fucking movies, dude.
Yeah.
Uh, I feel like as you were talking about like late in the game, some stuff that like, you know, harken back to childhood. I feel like I've maybe hit that nostalgic wave where I'm like, I'm a little nostalgic for just like the adult like dramas and stuff that may I have a lot on my extended list that were just like, oh, these were just like these were just solid. These were just like good movies. Like I feel like I hadn't seen some stuff like this recently. Some ones that didn't come up, that I don't want to bring up here because maybe we'll get into them. I do just want to ask, did you get a chance to see the Iron Claw?
No, I want to.
Okay, because that is one that I definitely thought I might hear creep up on your list. It's just outside for me. I just saw it recently, but a movie I would love to talk in depth with you about. I was very, very moved by it. I found it, it's a tough sit, but
A
really,
lot of
really
father
good
son stuff
movie.
in that. I don't know how well equipped I am to handle that right now. So
Uh,
we'll figure it out.
it's uh, it's a lot. You
Yeah.
did you? We'll leave on this note. Did you make time to go vroom vroom?
Signore Ferrari,
Did you see a Ferrari?
if Italy
Dominic the
wants a
Coco.
scapegoat, here I am.
Is that a yes? Is that C?
Yes. See.
Yes. Yes, we
See.
did. Okay. Well,
Vroom.
we'll leave that as a teaser. All I will say is it didn't make either of our top tens, but number one in our hearts as the host of Mann Hunters.
Oh, yes.
Definitely our favorite film of 2023, Michael Mann's Ferrari. And we'll be talking about it on
Watch
episode 14 next week, baby.
watch one man try to keep his company afloat, keep it out of any kind of turmoil, pick the perfect driver, and manage telling his wife about his
Watch the ultimate Michael Mann protagonist come to terms with the idea that two objects cannot occupy the same
the same
space
space.
in time. That dude, sorry, teaser for next week. That fucking monologue. I was jacked. Oh,
Yeah.
I believe I messaged you before you went in. It's manning all
Man,
over the
no.
fucking place
Fucking
for 2 hours and 10 minutes.
no, you said Ferrari fucks. And I was like, okay, I know where we're going.
Like everybody had told me, everybody seemed kind of muted on it. Like, we're glad to have him back, but like, this is not like top tier. And I watched it and I was like, I don't know if we got brainwashed by doing 13 weeks of that shit, but I was like, this is the most fucking Michael Mann ass movie I've ever fucking seen. And
Yes, dude.
I loved every second of it. Great movie. Thank you, sir. Okay, so next week, we resurrect Manhunters and we talk Ferrari. Uh, until then, I have been Noah,
I have been Gavin.
and we've been the Blanchard brothers. And these have been our favorite films of 2023. You've been listening to what we've been watching. Thank you to all of our incredible listeners for another fantastic year. This is the start of season 8 of the ARK of E podcast. Come along on yet another fantastic voyage.
If you're ready to party and you want to get down, bring your mom, your pa, and your Uncle James Brown. Bring Auntie M and Toto too, and just sail along. Sublime!